So first of all, let us see what is mean by the pharyngeal apparatus and what are the components of the pharyngeal apparatus. So pharyngeal apparatus, actually, first of all, what is mean by the pharyngeal apparatus? Actually, in the fourth week of the intrauterine development, in the fourth week of the intrauterine development, what happens is that in the lateral wall of the primitive pharynx, in the lateral wall of the primitive pharynx, there will be appearing some series of swellings. They are called as the pharyngeal apparatus collectively. Okay, so these elevations are termed as the pharyngeal arches, and now there are a series of, as we have just now said, there are the series of arches. So now between them there will be a depression, so they are called as the pouches, which are actually called as the pharyngeal pouches, and the grooves between these arches are called as the pharyngeal clefts. Okay, so the thin segments of the lateral wall, that is between them, that is called as the pharyngeal membranes. So let us try to learn by the diagram here actually. So as I've said, there are the series of the swellings on the lateral wall of the primitive pharynx. Okay, so like this is on the this on one side, and here will be the another side like this same. Okay, so that is the pharyngeal, these are the pharyngeal arches. Now here, what is happening is that, as we have seen just now, so let us try to understand these elevations. So these are the arches, so these are the arches, and now between them, that is the depression or the gap, that is called as the cleft. Okay, so that is the cleft, and now combinedly, these two. Okay, so that is called as the pharyngeal membrane. Okay, so the pharyngeal membrane, the thin segments of the lateral wall between the cleft and the pouch. Okay, so altogether we have got arch now, and then here it is the pouch. Okay, so this is the pouch here. So between the pouch and the cleft, so here it is the pouch, so here it is the pouch, and then here it is the membrane. So between them, that is called as the clefts. Okay, so now altogether we have got three new terms. So let us see once again. First of all, that is the pouches. So the gap between these arches are called as the pouches. Okay, so the pouches between these arches on the inner aspect, they are called as the pharyngeal pouches, and on the outer aspect, that are called as the cleft. Okay, so that means the same structure, but if it is on the internal side, that is called as the pouch, and if it is on the external aspect, that is called as the cleft. Okay, now after that one, the thin segments of the lateral wall, so here that is called as the membrane, so that is the pharyngeal membrane. So altogether these are constituting the pharyngeal apparatus. So pouches, arches, pharyngeal clefts, and the pharyngeal membrane. So all these structures, what happens is that they contribute to the formation of the head and neck region. So now let us see about the components of the arches, components of the pharyngeal apparatus. So now components of the pharyngeal apparatus completely. So first of all, that is the arches, pharyngeal arches, or simply the arches. So as for now, we will see about the arches, 5 in number totally, and lateral wall and the floor of the primitive pharynx, and they have the central core of the mesoderm. So central mesoderm. So and it is lined, central core of mesoderm externally by the ectoderm. So now if we take, this is one central, or else here you can say this is the central mesoderm. So this is the external aspect, that will be lined by the ectoderm, that will be lined by the ectoderm, and here that is lined by the endoderm. So here that is lined by the endoderm. So that is internally endoderm, centrally mesoderm, and externally that is the ectoderm. Now next one, that is the cleft. So the cleft, that the one which is seen from the outside. So altogether there are four in number. So clefts are four in number and lined by the ectoderm. So lined by the ectoderm and pharyngeal pouches. Next one, that is the next one, that is the pharyngeal pouches or simply pouches. So they are four in number and located internally. So and they are lined by the endoderm. So they are lined by the endoderm. So next one, that is the lastly, that is the pharyngeal membrane. So pharyngeal membranes are four in number. So pharyngeal membranes are four in number and located between the two adjacent arches. So where the clefts and the pouches are opposite to each other. So now let us see about the arches. First of all, what actually an arch contains and what are their fate and what are the muscles and nerves and the cartilages as they are the arches, and then arteries are also, and then the pouches, and lastly we will end this video by the applied aspect of all these components of the pharyngeal pouches. So first of all, the pharyngeal arches. So what are actually the pharyngeal arches? So pharyngeal arches, they appear due to the proliferation of the mesoderm. So pharyngeal arches, they are basically formed due to the proliferation of the mesoderm. Proliferation of the mesoderm in the wall of the primitive pharynx. Now they form an horseshoe-shaped cylindrical bars, and they actually contains, as we have seen in just previously, that they contains a core of the mesoderm. Okay, so where is this mesoderm derived from? Is that paraxial mesoderm. It's an important MCQ. The mesoderm of the pharyngeal arches are derived from the paraxial mesoderm and also the neural crest cells. So paraxial mesoderm and neural crest cells. Neural crest cells, and it is covered externally by the ectoderm and internally by the endoderm. So the cells of the mesodermal core, they are the pluripotent. And now typically let us try to understand by a diagram what are the components of the pharyngeal arches with a magnified view of a. Okay, so now after this one, now here each arch will be having an artery, so red color arch artery, and each arch will be having an arch cartilage, so cartilage, and then each arch will be having a muscle. Okay, so the component of the muscle, a muscle component will be there, and when we draw that there is a muscle, obviously we should have the nerve also. So altogether each arch is having an artery and each arch is having a cartilage component. Each arch is having a cartilage component, and here this is the muscle component, and here that is the nerve. Okay, so now extra, so this is the ectoderm, so that means external, and here this will be the endoderm. So when it is asked for the 3 marks question, the component of the pharyngeal arches, so that means each contains a cartilaginous bar. Okay, so each contains a cartilaginous bar or a rod or a mass derived from the neural crest, and then a muscle mass. So when there is a muscle mass, its nerve should be there, and an artery, pharyngeal arch artery, so and a nerve. Okay, so these are all the components of the pharyngeal arches. So now what is the fate of these structures? Okay, so what is the fate of these structures? Just to understand in the simpler words, a cartilaginous rod, what is happening, what is it doing is that it gives off the skeletal derivatives actually. So that means the permanent skeletal elements. It can be bone and a cartilage, bone or a cartilage or both, and a part of it disappears. Okay, so then the arch arteries, they are connected ventrally to the ventral aorta. Okay, so arch arteries, they are connected to the aorta. So they are connected to the ventral aorta. So now the nerve, actually the nerve, when I say the nerve, that will be providing the basically the motor innervation. Okay, so that is the nerve is giving helping in the motor innervation to the muscles derived and sensory also, when the skin component is the skin and the mucosa. So the arch arteries develop into the major arteries, so that we will discuss in the later chapters. So now the mesoderm component, or what is the muscles are there? So the muscles of the pharyngeal arches, which is a very important question. So the mesoderm of each arch gives rise to the muscle. So they are attached to the skeletal elements of the same. So that means if so in this picture you can see that a cartilage component is there and a muscle component is there. So the point to be understood is that these muscle can be attached to the derivatives of this cartilage component, or else it can be spread, it can attach to the it can sorry, it can be migrating to the other arches also elsewhere. Okay, so even though they are migrating to other places, the point of interest here is that the nerve is the same. Okay, so hence the nerve supply of the muscle indicates the origin of the particular arch. So with this knowledge, so let me repeat once again, there is a concept called as the migration of the muscle mass. So even if the muscles derived from one arch is migrating to elsewhere, they won't leave the nerve supply there only. Instead what is happening, instead what is happening is that they will maintain the same nerve supply. Okay, so that is about the muscles of the pharyngeal arches. So that is the concept behind. Now what is happening is that from each arch there are a group of muscles. So the muscles of the first arch, so let us make a small note here. So muscles of the arches here. So muscles of these arches. So first of all, that is the first arch. So from the first arch, the muscles will be derived, or the muscles we are getting are the muscles of the mastication, which are four in number. Muscles of the mastication, anterior belly of digastric, anterior belly of digastric, mylohyoid, and tensor tympani, and tensor palatii. So now these are all the muscles derived from the first arch, and the nerve of the first arch is the mandibular nerve, usually asked in the MCQs. Any nerve. Okay, so basically as these are all the muscles derived from the first arch, they are they are called as they are supplied by the mandibular nerve. So now coming here, that is the second arch. Okay, so these muscles derived from the second arches are the muscles of the facial expression, or simply we can say the facial muscles. Facial muscles. Oh, and then the posterior belly of digastric. Posterior belly of digastric. And then stylohyoid, and then the stapedius. Stylohyoid, and then the stapedius. So these are all derived from the facial nerve. So sorry, these are all supplied by the facial nerve. Sorry, let me correct. So now, in other words to say, the nerve of the second arch is the facial nerve. So like that. So third arch. So the third arch are by the stylopharyngeus. So the only muscle here it is the stylopharyngeus. So which is supplied by the glossopharyngeal nerve. So stylopharyngeus is supplied by the glossopharyngeal nerve. So in other words, we can say that the nerve of the third arch is the glossopharyngeal nerve. Okay. So this is about the till the third arch. So now let us see about the fourth and the fifth arches. So very important note, and usually asked in the MCQs, either the nerves or the muscles. So here the muscles of the fourth arch. So the muscles of the fourth arch, actually they are the cricothyroid, levator, villi, palatine, and then the sorry, constrictors of the pharynx. So we can say the pharynx constrictors. So these are supplied by the superior laryngeal nerve. So superior laryngeal nerve. So the nerve of the fourth arch is by the superior laryngeal nerve. And now the sixth arch. So sixth arch muscles are the intrinsic muscles of the larynx. Sixth arch derivatives are the intrinsic muscles of the larynx, and they are supplied by the recurrent laryngeal nerve. They are supplied by the recurrent laryngeal nerve. So the nerve of the sixth arch is the recurrent laryngeal, nerve of the fourth arch is the superior laryngeal nerve. Okay, so the point to be noted is that fifth disappears, the fifth arch will be disappearing. So these are about the muscles of all the arches, first, second, third, fourth, and then the sixth. Okay, so now coming to the nerves actually. Okay, so nerves we have taken down. So the trigeminal nerve, actually it is the nerve of the first arch. So the branches of the maxillary and the mandibular divisions. Okay, so now apart from this one, a point to be noted is that the chorda tympani nerve, uh, of a pre-traumatic branch of the facial nerve, it is also the the first arch is also supplied by the chorda tympani. So now after that one, nerve of the second arch we have written down, that is the facial nerve. So and then nerve of the third arch, that is the glossopharyngeal nerve, and nerve of the fourth and superior, and then the recurrent laryngeal nerves. So these are all the muscles and then the nerves of them. So now let us see about the next component, that is the cartilaginous component. So the what are the cartilaginous components of the arches? So cartilages of the arches, cartilaginous derivatives of the arches. So now the first arch cartilage. So the first arch cartilage, it has got a name called as the Meckel's cartilage, commonly asked MCQ, that is the Meckel's cartilage. So now this Meckel's cartilage, what they are doing, what they are or what are the structures developing from this Meckel's cartilage? So that is the mandibular process, and then the malleus incus, and then the malleus and incus, sorry, and then the uh, actually these are all the derivatives of the first arch cartilage. Okay, so let us take down in a simpler word. So the Meckel's cartilage derivatives are the malleus, incus, and then the ventral part, it actually disappears completely. Okay, so and the local mesenchyme, it undergoes the ossification and forms the mandible. Okay, so these are all the derivatives of the first arch. So derivatives of the cartilage component of the first arch. Now the second arch. Okay, so the second arch cartilage. So in this side we will have a diagram here. so that it will be good for our understanding. So from the lateral view here, so here, and now these are the arches here. So this is the first one, and here the first arch will be here. We can write down the cartilage, Meckel's cartilage. Second is the Richards cartilage, and the third will be here. And the most important point to be noted here is that, so the fourth and sixth will be fused. So I am drawing a continuous diagram with a fused way. Okay, so now let us label first, second, third, and 4 and 6 will be fused. Okay, so that is the cartilaginous derivative. So now now we will see about the second arch cartilaginous derivatives, so which is called as the Richards cartilage. So in important MCQ here, so Richards cartilage. So this Richards cartilage, what is happening is that it is the dorsal and, sorry, so the third year of skill, so that is the stapes, and then styloid process, and lesser cornu of the hyoid bone, of the hyoid bone, lesser cornu of the hyoid bone, and now then the stylohyoid ligament also, stylohyoid ligament. Actually, so that is the stylohyoid ligament, and then the third arch cartilage. So it has the point to be noted is that there is no any special name here. Okay, so the greater cornu. So the third arch derivatives are the greater cornu of the hyoid bone. In the previous arch, we have seen the lesser cornu. Now here we will be seeing the development of the greater cornu. So lastly, the fourth and the sixth cartilages. So now the fourth and the sixth, what they form the laryngeal cartilages, the cartilages of the larynx of cartilages of the larynx here. So now they are the thyroid, cricoid, arytenoid, corniculate, cuneiform, and then the except the epiglottis. So these are all the laryngeal cartilages. So let me write here except the epiglottis, which will be deriving from the hypopharyngeal eminence, which we will be seeing in the development of the tongue. So these are about the cartilages. Okay, so keeping the diagram like that only. So now let us move to the next component, that is the arteries of the pharyngeal arches. Arteries, and which is followed by the pouches and then the cleft. So and then the clinical features of these all derivatives. So regarding the importance of the video, commonly asked questions will be there. So cartilaginous derivatives, arches of the derivatives. So now the first arch artery, that is the maxillary artery. So the artery of the first arch, that is the maxillary artery. Now the artery of the second arch, that is the hyoid and the stapedial arteries, hyoid and the stapedial artery. And then the coming to the next one, that is the third arch. The third arch artery is the common carotid and then the internal carotid, common carotid and internal carotid. And then the fourth arch. So the fourth arch, that is on the aortic arch, and then the aortic arch, and then the subclavian artery. So now next one, that is the fifth arch, large, that is the pulmonary artery and ductus arteriosus. Pulmonary artery and then the ductus arteriosus. So that is about, a small mistake has creeped here. So that is not the fifth arch, that is actually the sixth arch. So the sixth arch artery, that is the ductus arteriosus on the left side and pulmonary artery on the right side. So these are the arches. Now moving to the next component, that is the pouches. So actually, what are these pouches in the picture? In the first picture I have drawn, I have said the pouches are the structures which are of the pharyngeal apparatus, and they are seen on the lat wall, okay, between the two consecutive pouches. Or to simply define them, the pharyngeal pouches are the between these arches on the inner aspect, they are called as the pharyngeal pouches. So there are altogether four in number. They are altogether four in number. So now the next one, that is the pharyngeal pouches. Pharyngeal pouches. So there the four pairs are there. Four pairs are there, and they are these are the evaginations. So these are the evaginations of the endodermal. And now the pharyngeal pouches are same, craniocaudal from above to below. So now the first pouch is between the, so if we take this diagram here, so this is the first arch, this is the followed by the second. So now when we say the pouch, that means this is the pouch. Okay, so this is the pouch. So now I will say that the first pouch is between the first and second arch. So this is the first arch, this is the second arch. So now in between these two, that is the pouches. So first and the second pouches. So now like that, altogether four pairs of pouches are there. So now the first pharyngeal pouch. So now coming to the first pharyngeal pouch, actually it forms a diverticulum called as the tubotympanic recess. It is called as the tubotympanic recess. And now after this one, that is the tubotympanic recess, which gives to the middle ear cavity, and then the, so middle ear cavity, and then the mastoid antrum. So mastoid antrum. So that is the tubotympanic recess, which is derived from the pouch, first pharyngeal pouch. So now coming to the second pharyngeal pouch. So second pharyngeal pouch, it is forming the endodermal lining. It is forming the endodermal lining of the tonsil. So important MCQ here. Endodermal lining of the tonsil is formed from the second pharyngeal pouch. So now after this one, from here what is happening is that numerous buds they will be arising, and that are called as the tonsillar crypts. And one it is actually is mostly obliterated. So part of this pouch will be will be seen in the adults, and that is called as the intratonsillar cleft. So now after this one, the third pharyngeal pouch. Okay, so the third pharyngeal pouch here. So the third pharyngeal pouch, actually it is expanding into dorsal and the ventral. Now what happens is that the third pouch will be giving rise to inferior. So the third pouch will be giving rise to the inferior parathyroid gland. So and then the or the parathyroid 3, and then the fourth will be giving rise to the fourth pouch will be giving rise to the superior parathyroid or parathyroid 4. So now the fourth also will be giving rise to this one. So now the parathyroid 3, which is also called as the inferior, it is developing from the third pouch, migrates caudally towards the downside. So that is why the parathyroid 3 or the inferior. So let me repeat once again. So PT 3, and here this is PT4. Now parathyroid 3 and parathyroid 4, the two different names. Now parathyroid 3 is given to the inferior parathyroid gland, which is derived from the arch. That 3 denotes the uh, number of the pouch. Okay, so to repeat once again, the inferior parathyroid gland is derived from the third pharyngeal pouch, and then the superior will be derived from the fourth pharyngeal pouch. Now what is happening, why there is a difference? Because there is a difference because the parathyroid 3 will be migrating caudally, due to which the inferior, hence its position is lower than the fourth one. Okay, lower than the parathyroid 4 developing from the fourth pouch. So that is about the that is about the pouches, first, second, third, and then the fourth. Okay, and then lastly, now we will be coming to the pharyngeal clefts. Okay, and now followed by the pharyngeal membranes. So now I will be explaining this diagram. So now these are, now we will see the pouches, and now next one, that is the clefts also we will be seeing. So here the clefts actually, that are the actually the grooves here. Okay, so this is the second cleft. So second cleft, third cleft, and here this is the fourth cleft. So these are all the clefts. These are all the clefts here, and now here will be the tubotympanic recess. Tubotympanic recess. Okay, so now after this one, let us see about the clefts. actually say four clefts will be there. So here this will be the one. So this is the first one. So the one, so altogether we have got now the four clefts. So this is the first cleft. So first cleft, second, third, and then the fourth cleft. So now in the region, so these are the invaginations of the surface ectoderm. So the clefts are the invaginations of the surface ectoderm. And now it is very thin actually. And now the let us see about the clefts further. So only the first pharyngeal cleft, only the first will have a definitive fade, and that means it is destined to become only very clearly, that is the external auditory meatus. So that is destined to become the external auditory meatus. So that is now there is an important question called as the cervical sinus. So very another important 3 marks question, that is called as the cervical sinus. So it is actually the temporary depression forming the which are including the second, third, and fourth pharyngeal clefts. So during this fifth week, what happens is that the one of the mesenchyme of the second pharyngeal arch, it divides rapidly. So here you can see, we can see this one, it is it is growing rapidly, and it is growing and extending downwards to overlap the second, third, and then the fourth cleft. So due to which there is a slit-like cavity called due to which there is a formation of the structure that is called as the that is called as the cervical sinus. Okay, so now the slit-like cavity called and the cervical cyst, actually that is lined by an ectoderm here. So now that there is a gap occurring there. Okay, so this gap, that is the gap that is called as the cervical cyst, that is called as the cervical cyst. Okay, so that is lined by the ectoderm and which soon disappears, and there the neck develops. So that is about the cervical sinus, and then the cervical clefts, pharyngeal clefts. And lastly, that is the membranes. So coming to the membranes here. So pharyngeal membrane. So similarly, there are four pharyngeal membranes, and they are having the inner layer formed by the endodermal lining and outer by the ectodermal. So only the first pair, only the first pair, it only the first pair it forms the definitive structure, that is the tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane. So second, third, fourth, what happens is that they obliterate, or we can say that is the disappear. Obliterate or disappear. So that is about the pharyngeal membranes. Now coming to the clinical features or the applied aspect here, there are many syndromes are there. So of which commonly asked is the pressure colon syndrome. So there are they are the groups of the syndromes we will be calling. So that is the first of all, that is the treasure Collins syndrome. So that is called as the treasure Collins syndrome. Okay, so what are these actually? Because that is the mandibulofacial dysostosis. That is the mandibulofacial dysostosis, and it is an autosomal. So what happens is that the underdevelopment of the zygomatic bones, so less developed of zygomatic bones, less developed zygomatic bones, and then less development of the lower jaw, less development of the lower jaw, and then palpebral fissures, sorry, or you can say down slanting palpebral fissures, down slanting the palpebral fissures, and deformed external ears. So these are the symptoms of the treasure Collins syndrome. So this is the example of the first arch syndrome. So where what happens is that the migration of the neural crest cells doesn't happen into the first pharyngeal arch. So due to which there are some syndromes. So and then next one, that is the Perry-Robin syndrome, DiGeorge syndrome. Okay, so these are the different of which treasure Collin is usually asked. They are asked syndrome. And now next one, most importantly, the cervical cyst. The another applied aspect here, it is the cervical cyst. So cervical cyst also called as the branchial cyst. Cervical cyst also called as the branchial cyst. So what happens is that usually the cervical sinus which we have seen, that disappears, but if it fails to disappear or obliterate, then that leads to a formation of the structure called as the branchial cyst. So what is this one is that a spherical swelling, a spherical swelling on the anterior border of the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So that is called as the cervical cyst. So and then also there is another condition called as the branchial fistula. So if the cervical cyst both opens externally and internally, so then that is called as the branchial fistula. So thank you.